Hash browns are something that I know a lot of people love, especially the McDonald's ones, so in this one I'm going to try and replicate them as best as I can to give you this delicious treat that we all know and love. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Alright guys, to start this off, we're going to need 3 large white potatoes or any all-rounder potato to which we can peel off the skin, also removing any imperfections such as brown spots or eyes, and with the peels, these can be drizzled with oil, salt and pepper and baked at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for some nice little crispy skins. With the peeled potatoes, run them along the largest side of a box grater to create large thin strips, and when you get close to the end, please be careful you don't make finger hash browns by grating your fingers, only leaving us with all of this. The grated potato can then be added into a large mixing bowl, then run them under cold water which will wash out the excess starch that we don't want and will make our final product cluggy and soggy, and this will also rehydrate the potatoes, preventing them from oxidizing, which is when the potatoes go brown after sitting out for too long. Also, I should mention, don't overfill the bowl to the point the water starts pouring over the edges, as the potato will make a run for it too. Only fill it just under full and give the mix a nice massage at the same time. Once that's done, pour the mix through a sieve to drain the potato, and I suggest using a bigger one than what I'm using here. I just like to make things difficult for myself. Anyway, give the sieve a shake, then allow this to sit and drain for 10 minutes for the excess water to make its departure. Place a large saucepan of water onto your stovetop over a high heat, bringing the water to a boil and wishing it was this quick in real time. Once boiling, add in the drained potato, being careful the water doesn't splash back. Give it a quick mix around to break it up and boil for 2.5 minutes just to soften it up a little bit. 2.5 minutes later, carefully scoop out the potato with a kitchen spider or slotted spoon, draining off the excess water, and place it into a tea towel or kitchen cloth over a bowl, allowing it to cool down for 30 minutes or so. Now once cooled down and cool enough to handle, wrap up the towel or cloth nice and tightly, ensuring nothing can escape. Then with this, squeeze the absolute you-know-what out of it to remove as much moisture as possible. Even though all the steps are important in this recipe, this one right here is the most important. If we don't remove the moisture, our potatoes won't crisp up and won't get that beautiful golden crust, only leaving us with a soggy napkin, so please squeeze all of it out, even if you have to transfer it into a new dry towel. With this now, place the potatoes into a clean dry bowl, shaking the towel to remove any bits that are clinging on. Next, we want to crack in 2 large free-range eggs, which will help bind this all together. 3/4 of a teaspoon or 3.5 grams of baking powder, not baking soda, to help crisp and colour the hash browns. A good sprinkle of sea salt flakes, roughly 1.5 teaspoons or 7.5 grams worth, along with 20 cracks of black pepper or a small pinch of ground white pepper, but like always, seasoning is to your taste. It's now time to get our hands in there to give this a really good mix through, especially making sure that the eggs are well mixed, just until you have something that looks like this and can easily hold its shape. Proceed by lining a baking tray with parchment or baking paper, then measure out roughly 3 tablespoons or a small handful's worth of the mix for each individual hash brown, or you can scrap that and make them any size you want. Let's then mould these into shape, and I'm going for a nice smooth and consistent rectangle, and if you're a bit of a perfectionist like me, it's easy to spend more time on this part than making the entire recipe, but shape them however you want. Once done, place the whole tray into the freezer for a minimum of 30 minutes or in the fridge overnight to firm up, but please do not fry these like this, they won't work and it will just be a waste of time. Now to create a Herby Mayo dipping sauce, crack 1 large free-range egg into a small mixing bowl and add in 1.5 teaspoons or 12 grams of Dijon Mustard to add a nice sweet tang. As for the herbs, here is 10 grams or 0.3 ounces of dill and 5 grams or 0.2 ounces of flat leaf parsley, to which we can scrunch into a tight bunch to make it easier to work with, then come through with a nice sharp knife and give it a really good rough chop, which doesn't have to be super fine, just make sure it's consistent with no really large leaves or stems. Also, if you don't like parsley, use more dill, as that's what makes this mayo so fresh and tasty, and once that's done, add it into the mixing bowl with the other ingredients. To stabilise the bowl, I recommend using a wet ringed out tea towel wrapped around the bottom of the bowl to keep it from wobbling everywhere, then using a whisk, give this a really good mix to combine the ingredients. Now to create the emulsion, which in this case is the mayonnaise, slowly pour in roughly 1 3/4 cups or 430 milliliters of olive oil, and whilst doing so, don't stop vigorously whisking, otherwise it will split. If you didn't know, an emulsion is mixing 2 or more liquids together that don't normally work together to form bonds that will allow it to stabilize and come together. and also you may have noticed me saying roughly to the amount of oil, and this is because all eggs are different and contain different levels of water and fat depending on the chicken, so you may need more or less. But as long as it becomes a nice thick consistency like this, you're good to go. After that, we can hit this up with 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of sea salt flakes, along with 10 cracks of black pepper or a small pinch of ground white pepper for a nice seasoning. Next, get yourself 1 large fresh lemon, slice it in half, squeeze out the juice either using a citrus juicer or by hand, and add it to the Herby Mayo for a nice citrus freshness. Give this another quick mix for those flavours to become friends, and this can then be placed into the fridge until we're ready to serve, or up to 1 week covered in a nice airtight container or glass jar. Now to cook the hash browns, place a large high-rimmed pan onto your stovetop over a high heat and pour in enough canola or vegetable oil to fill it just under halfway, and heat the oil to 190 degrees Celsius or 375 degrees Fahrenheit using a thermometer to accurately control it. Once hot, very carefully and gently place in the firm hash browns, doing this in batches depending on the size of your pan, and fry these for 4 or 5 minutes, flipping them halfway or until they're deeply golden and extremely crisp all over. Once achieved, gently remove them from the oil, placing them onto a wire rack over a baking tray or onto some kitchen cloth to drain any excess oil, and then with that oil, turn it off the heat, allow it to completely cool down, strain it, and then reuse it. These hash browns have now been chilling out for about a minute, which allows them to drain the excess oil and crisp up to their full potential, leaving us with this beautiful, super crispy and golden masterpiece that's ready for whatever you want to do with it. As for me, I'm going to place them onto a serving board and accompany them with that delicious and fresh Herby Mayo, or some classic tomato ketchup, or you can use barbecue or ranch, recipe for that on my second channel, please subscribe. Then the only thing left to do is make all of our efforts worthwhile, and that is we can then choose which dipping sauce we want, and we can then dig in.
So there we have it. This recipe right here makes 4 large hash browns or 8 really small ones, and like most of my recipes, it can easily be doubled, tripled and so on, or halved if you wanted to make less. To store them, you can place them in the fridge raw for up to 3 days or in the freezer raw for up to 6 months, and to reheat them, you can place them back in the hot oil just for 1 minute or so, but I don't really recommend it because they will become a little bit soggy, so they are best eaten fresh. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button, comment, share, do all of that stuff. It really does help my channel out, and consider subscribing along with hitting that bell notification next to it so you never miss one I upload. Also, this is probably going to be the second to last video in this house, so it's time to say goodbye. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and enjoy.
Thank you.